We are starting with the painting tips right off the bat. As I began base coating each part of today's models, which is the first out of the 2 steps my method requires, I never shy away from adding a pinch of color to any metallic details. What's more, adding a pinch of that same color to the other base tones would have been a great way to add more cohesion to the scheme. Still, the second step of this process will make sure no color stands out from the others without us wanting it to. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Getting back into business, today I'm speed painting. So the more I can simplify the color scheme, the better. 1 color for everything leather and 1 color for everything metallic. Blue and red will be my standout colors, and then off-white will fill in the rest without screaming for attention, allowing the red and blue to take center stage no matter if they are present in small amounts. That is half of the paint job already and the hardest part of my method. But you can always add a bit more detail if you consider the extra time is worth the result. Though that doesn't mean moving away from speed painting. By just taking an extra minute per model, I added highlights in a scratchy manner. This will add a lot to the finished product in contrast to the few seconds I spent on them. While they may not look great now, after I'm done with step 2, it will all blend together to create a richer result. When it came to the metallics, since I took the lazy but effective approach of using a sponge to add both highlights and texture at the same time, I had to do this before painting any other colors, as the sponge, while rich in detail, is quite inaccurate. With the added details of these highlights, it is time for step 2, for which I'll use my Grimdark recipe of oil paints: ivory black, cadmium green and raw sienna. This recipe in particular is my most common go-to as it yields a very dirty and muddy color which really speaks Grimdark, and it is that hint of green what makes it different. Black and dark brown washes are boring. If you want your models to stand out from the rest, add a pinch of color to them just as with the metallics, and create a dark yet interesting shadow tone. Using odorless white spirits, I'll dilute the paints, making sure to break up any clumps. But while I'm using oil paints, this is not your everyday oil wash. This is a thicker mix which might look scary at first, but it is all part of the reductive technique I'll show you. For it to work, it is important to avoid a common mistake when working with oils, which is not giving them time to set. And I say set and not dry because it'll take hours for the oil paints to fully dry. Though by waiting 30 minutes to an hour, it'll give the oils time to get a grip on the model and not fully come out as I begin cleaning. This is the perfect time to grab a snack and take a break to avoid burnout, after having gone through the base coating step, which in my opinion is the most boring part of painting. After waiting for the paint to set, I will use a makeup sponge to clean the oils from the raised details, revealing the color underneath while keeping dark and defined shadows, all from simply going over the model with a sponge, though you can see, especially in the white areas, that there is still a thin layer of paint left behind, tinting everything to a darker tone. That is exactly what I was looking for when I gave the paint time to set, and is the key to unlock the full potential of the reductive technique. As it opens up more layers of color we can very easily modulate to create detail. But before getting into that, there is an issue to address. You will see the sponge leaves a different finish depending on how accessible the area is. For any harsh transitions or weird looking clumps of paint, a soft synthetic brush is used to smooth and blend. And thanks to the properties of oil paints and their extremely long drying time, this is as simple as moving the brush around over the desired area. Only thing to have in mind is that the brush will pick up paint as it blends. So to avoid any smudges, I'll clean the brush over a paper towel as one would do when dry brushing from time to time. Already, this approach is an alternative to creating dark and defined shadows while still keeping a smooth bridge between them and the raised details. But now it is time to exploit that extra layer of modulation I was talking about. Using a Q-tip damp with white spirits, though making sure to remove any excess on a paper towel, I would use a poking and rolling motion to completely remove that thin layer of oil paint the makeup sponge wasn't able to clean. The spirits will reactivate and dilute the paint, while the Q-tip itself will pick it up, revealing the true color underneath on whichever areas I want, leaving me with a clean layer of highlights, a tinted one due to the thin layer of oils, and the dark shadows where the oil accumulated and remained untouched. Everything with smooth transitions from one tone to the other, which just as before can easily be achieved by simply moving a soft brush around any areas where the Q-tip ended up being too aggressive when removing the oils. This will mostly happen right at the beginning. You will see this effect lessen as the Q-tip gets more and more dirty from picking up paint, to the point where we have to change to a new one. Before I show you how I blend any of the harsh transitions this step might create, I'll leave you to see a bit more of the cleanup itself. And if the models I'm painting caught your eye, they are from Daka Store upcoming Kickstarter, the Torquemadas Inquisition, an array of models where the echoes of the Spanish conquistadors meet the industrial shadows of World War I. There will be a link down in the description where you can check out the full range of models, plus claim the free Musketeer miniature and painting. The blending is done the same way as before, and is pretty much dry brushing, but instead of having a little paint, the brush is completely clean. Now, unless you want to be precise when it comes to the blending, some paint will end up again over the raised details, though much less than the initial thin layer of oil left behind by the sponge. I ended up going back to the Q-tip to reveal the full color underneath once again on some areas. All in all, apart from base coating, this method requires absolutely no skill, as all I'm doing is applying oil over all of the model and going over it with a sponge to remove the paint from the raised details, followed by blending everything using a motion similar to what dry brushing the whole model would be, and finally moving a Q-tip around all of the raised details for further cleaning, which due to its size won't get into the recesses. When it comes to time, the base coating stage will vary from painter to painter, but you can get an idea of how much this would take you. Apart from the wait time in between stages, covering the model with oils, cleaning with the makeup sponge, and blending the transitions will take you less than a minute per model. The cleaning with the Q-tip will be the slowest part of step 2. But still, you won't spend more than a minute or two on it. And while all of this can be done in a speedy manner, you can spend more time, which will be rewarded with a better result, especially when it comes to surfaces such as capes, flesh, or anything where smooth transitions have space to shine. Spending that extra time working the oil paints can yield transitions as good as the ones you'd get with an airbrush, but there are other videos for that. Today I wanted to share something any painter, even a beginner, could replicate in order to tackle a warband or army in no time. Thank you for watching, and to Daka Store for providing me with some amazing models. I hope you found the video helpful and that, like me, you agree that this is more than an acceptable result for the low barrier of entry and time it requires. If you have any questions or opinions on the subject, let us talk about it on the comments.